My previous video about converting the G line into an extension of the B line did really well, and I thought you guys might be interested in having some fun and doing a full-on fantasy transit breakdown of LA. While fantasy transit maps are seen as basically useless, I definitely think there's merit to the idea of having a master plan, or at least something better than what LA seems to have, which is whatever the direct opposite of a plan is. This comment on the last video, that was actually a correction on what I said, that being the C line also has a right-of-way along with the B and D lines, which I failed to point out, but that it's all within a highway median, and stations are inconvenient to get to and are just not great places to be. But it made me think of just how disjointed and weird the entire network is, despite it being fairly extensive, and how LA would approach bringing it all together and having something that actually works. So this is the map today, brilliantly overlaid onto Google Maps by moi. Oh, and let's also add in Metrolink, because if service is really about to be up to every half hour on each line, then it can potentially become a serious player in the future. Emphasis, of course, on potentially. Now let's first address all projects under construction and add those in. So that's the Foothill extension on the A line up north, the K line extension to the C line, and actually taking over the branch of the C line towards Redondo Beach, and last but certainly not least, the D line extension. Well, actually, last, we'll put the Van Nuys LRT, which should commence construction this year, so really in like 3 years. So at this point, I'll take it from here as the almighty emperor of LA Transit. And the first thing I do at this point is, as I'm sure many of you won't be surprised to hear, fully grade separate the A, E, and K lines. This will come at the greatest cost along the A line south of downtown. In fact, it may end up being quite the extensive project, as much of it will likely have to find its way underground. But this section, which first opened in 1990, has very quickly gone out of date, and there's no way the line can remain the way it is in the long term. In general, though, these lines will see a major boost in their service quality from this, and this change on its own, while not affecting the map, will likely cause a decent growth in ridership, perhaps akin to adding a line. LA, as of now, disappoints with these lines. Let's change that. When it comes to the G line, I think we all know what I'm going to do. Now, the idea of the G line becoming a light rail line and extending through Burbank, Glendale, and eventually Pasadena has been a popular idea both in conversation of LA Metro and even in the comments section of my last video. While the LRT from NoHo to Pasadena is a great idea for a connection, I don't think this should come at the cost of forcing Valley riders to transfer a NoHo to get onto the B line to downtown. It makes much more sense to have the transfer for riders continuing onwards towards Pasadena. To know why, you only have to go to where the 101 and the 134 split. 2 lanes aim towards the 134 and 3 towards the 101. And don't count out the 170 coming from San Fernando, which is now connected to Metrorail at this point, and it entirely feeds into the 101, barring a single exit lane to the 134. And ask anyone from the Valley which trip they make more often, and almost everybody will say towards Hollywood and downtown. Point being, the priority of Valley riders needs to be able to get over the hill into LA, not to Pasadena. But this isn't to write off that link at all, and I think down the line, it should be put in place. You know what? Let's put it in right now. There. Perfect. And I think that having this branded as a separate branch to the A line makes most sense, and it looks a lot neater too. Okay, what's next? Definitely extend the D line to Santa Monica, like what they should be doing anyways, and let's bring the E line to the pier. Now it's time for 3 insane projects, but all of which are actually in Metro's plans to do in the next century. Let's go for the big one first, the Sepulveda subway. And I'm choosing alternative 5 here because that's the best one, and I'm also taking it all the way to LAX. Next up, the K line northern extension to Hollywood and Highland, and I'm definitely going with the La Brea alignment because I like lines that make sense. But seriously, if the big draw of the K line is that it's a direct connection to the airport, then let's make it a direct connection. And thirdly, the lesser talked about but still real plan to extend the C line through Playa Vista, Venice Beach, and connect the E and D lines in Santa Monica. Alright, so at this point we're already well over our heads. Many billions have been spent and many tunnels have been bored. But I think that what you get is something that actually looks like a cohesive system. And with my priority of grade separation and fast service, this on its own would revolutionize the way Angelenos would travel through the city. Compare this to what we have now and it's night and day. So to stop here would be sufficient in accomplishing our task. So of course, we're going to keep going. Let's extend the C line east to connect with the Norwalk Metrolink station. Let's also do the planned E-Line East extension, but also remove one of these 3 stations that are way too close together. I'm just going to choose one at random, but this can easily be calculated with some very real data at hand. Or instead of removing a station, you could just move the Atlantic station onto Beverly Boulevard and make a much more sensible alignment. Extending the A line to Ontario and then to Ontario Airport should also be on the cards here. And I'll also vouch for an infill station on the B line at Lancashire and Camarillo. Now for some new lines. The one everyone will be screaming into their screens for at this point will be the Vermont subway. And I agree. I'm just going to go with Metro's own proposal here in terms of stations. And this line, I guess, would run all the way to Chatsworth, but I'll just show it on the map emerging out of the Wilshire, Vermont station, since any other way of showing this line is beyond my capabilities. Then I will also add the West Santa Ana line, but adds a station in the Arts District and uses an abandoned rail alignment towards Orange County. And why not? I'll have it connected to the OC streetcar and the Santa Ana Metrolink, as the alignment of this is just desperate to do so. Let's also make a westward branch of this line. It could either be a westward branch or perhaps another line that emerges from downtown, but either way this line could go along Slauson before breaking off to connect to the Sepulveda line, C line, and terminate at Playa del Rey. Let's now extend the K line south, but not just to Torrance as planned, but down to Sepulveda where it can go straight all the way to connect to the A line, then stand to connect to the West Santa Ana line, then all the way to Disneyland, Angel Stadium, and the Anaheim Metrolink. Firstly, who knew Sepulveda Boulevard took you straight to Disneyland? But secondly, just imagine if the K-Line one day could take you between Hollywood and Disneyland. Crazy potential is waiting to be unlocked. Now let's extend the Vermont subway to meet with the Slauson line and the extended K-Line. Perfect. Okay, so at this point we are so far into this hypothetical future that calling what to do next is getting pretty difficult. We could do a subway line that connects Glendale to Vermont and Sunset, have it follow the B line and the Vermont subway alignments, then go under the K line before going along Santa Monica Boulevard through West Hollywood and Beverly Hills, connecting to the D line and heading down to Santa Monica. Then another line that goes along Venice Boulevard to Mid-City, and then goes along Pico through 7th Street Metro Center before terminating at the Arts District Station. Back to the valley now, and let's extend the Van Nuys LRT down to Ventura, and maybe have it do something crazy, like go up along Sepulveda, cover more dense areas in the region, and connect back up with the line San Fernando, sort of like the Circle Line in London. And at this point, you're going to now have to connect Universal City and Van Nuys Ventura with its own line, with some of it along the median of Ventura, and some of it likely underground. Then let's give Reseda its own north-south LRT, and let's add a Warner Center branch along Canoga. And then we can actually extend the Sepulveda line with a westward branch that connects to both of these lines on Ventura. And at this point, the Vermont subway, that is still hanging awkwardly off of Wilshire, Vermont, finally give it its own northern terminus at Burbank Airport. And maybe have the Burbank-Pasadena line run services to the airport as well. And with that, I think we've reached a good point to stop. Wow, this is so far and away from what LA has at the moment. And who knows how much of this is really possible. But what I want to know is what you guys think. Are these good ideas? What did I miss? And what would you have put on your map instead? Let's keep the conversation going down below in the comments, as that was really enjoyable following last video. So yeah, let's keep dreaming and believing in a better future for the city of LA.